What's up, everyone? This is Quentin Figueroa with SlayerMint.com, and I would like to talk to you about how Peter Schiff is wrong about Bitcoin. Okay, so first of all, big fan of Peter Schiff. I've been following him for a long time. I like a lot of what he says about gold and about the economy and this kind of stuff in general. So I really like the guy and nothing bad about him, but he's wrong about Bitcoin. He just doesn't get it in that regard. And I'd like to kind of go into that and talk and address kind of some of the points he talks about and some of the stuff he says about Bitcoin, because it doesn't just apply to him. It applies to other people who, aren't into Bitcoin as well. But let's check it out. So yeah, with the pullback on the Dow Jones, the last week or so, it's kind of gone down. So Peter Schiff, you're kind of hearing about him again, and he's coming in talking about what he's been talking about for a long time, which I agree with him on, that the economy, is in bad shape and that there's going to be some type of crash or correction coming for the Dow and other things pretty soon. It's on the horizon. So you have this kind of stuff going on. Peter Schiff's talking about it. He's talking about the bond bubble. He's talking about the stock bubble. He's, of course, talking about gold and how, you should protect yourself with gold and foreign assets and this kind of stuff. And then, of course, he talks about crypto because that always comes up and that's, something people want to know about. And he's not bullish on crypto. He's not a fan of crypto. He always talks negatively of it. So, he gives his take on that. So you hear all this kind of stuff going on. So yeah, he's coming on talking about this stuff and he's bringing up certain points over and over again. So that's what I'm going to kind of go through. So first off, which what he's saying is that Bitcoin is now crashing, right? So Bitcoin, the last year or so, it went from like 1,000 to 20,000. And, now it has, in the last month or two, it's kind of started to crash and kind of go backwards, right? So now, right now it's around $10,000, but it was as low as about 6,000 or so, a week or so ago. So it has had like a pretty steady decline, right? And so, somebody could look at this and say, Bitcoin is crashing. This is a bad thing. And it's, time to get out, right? But I mean, he would be the first one to know. You have to, what kind of time frame are we talking about, right? Because Bitcoin started in 2009. And since 2009, it's gone from 0 to like 20,000. And right now it's at 10,000. So it's had like a huge, incredible, phenomenal gain, growth that like no other asset class has seen, like not even close, right? He'll be the first one to say gold, from its 2000 price has gone up, 4x, 5x or whatever, right? So gold has gone up if you look at it from 2000. But if you look at freaking Bitcoin from 2009, it's like huge. It's like not even a fair comparison. So it's like, what time frame are we talking about? It's gone down within the last like month? It's like, okay, let's look at like the past decade. It's like, let's look at the past year. Let's like, what kind of time frame are we even talking about here? You have to kind of see how you're measuring this stuff, right? And of course, there's a reason why that it is going down, right? So back in November, I made a video saying that Bitcoin was in a bubble and it's going to crash, right? And I was pretty sure that it would go down back to like 1,000 or 2,000 or so, right? That was back when it was 6,000 or 7,000 6,000 or 7,000 for a Bitcoin. But it didn't go down. It went all the way up to like 20,000. And now after 20,000, it started to kind of do what I thought it would do. I just thought it would happen earlier. It went a lot higher, but now it's starting to correct. And in my view, I still think it's correcting. I still think we got a long way to go down. Peter Schiff sees it going down as it crashing. I see it going down as a correction. It's like it went from 1,000 to 20,000 in a year. Let it freaking correct. Let it let off some steam. Let it freaking find a new value. This has happened before in 2013. It went up a lot and then it crashed and corrected and found like a new base. And it took like 2 or 3 years for it to kind of slowly, sit around 600 and then kind of start working its way back up again. So we're in a similar scenario right now. It's not crashing. It's crashing no more than it was crashing in 2013 when it ultimately recovered and came much higher than it's ever been. So to conflate like a crash with a correction is just dishonest and manipulative. And I think he knows this. Well, no, he doesn't know that because he really does think it's not worth anything and it has no value. So he does believe that it's going down because it's crashing. But that's just not the case. It's crashing in the sense that it's correcting, and it needs to find like a new kind of base, right? I mean, it's had a lot of like money come in. It's had a lot of speculation and a lot of people buying, trying to get rich quick and all this kind of thing. So of course that's going on, but it's not to take away from the utility or the value of it. And, the way that it's going to continue to grow into the future based off of the value that it has. So he's kind of conflating the crash and the correction as one thing, which is just not like an accurate way to look at it. Okay, so yeah, now another thing he talks about is gold money, right? So this is a business that I guess he's somehow involved in, part in. It's like a digital currency backed by gold, right? So great idea, right? Gold, safe money. Might as well have like a digital currency backed by gold rather than a fiat currency that's, backed by nothing, backed by the country. So it's a great idea and it makes sense. So that is something that he promotes a lot. But by him promoting it and by him being into that, I mean, yeah, I get the obvious self-interest of him being part of that company. But even before he was part of a company like this, he still didn't like Bitcoin and he still promoted a gold-backed currency like this. So it's not that. It's just this is what he truly believes. And for him to back that, be involved in that, shows he does not understand Bitcoin. Because the value of Bitcoin isn't the ability to send currency digitally, right? That's what everybody says. And it's the people just still don't get it. Bitcoin's value is not the ability to digitally send money. It's like, that's not the value, right? And for people to think that is a total miss of what really the value of Bitcoin is, right? And so he has this company, Gold Money, and is doing the same exact thing supposedly Bitcoin's doing, right? You're sending money digitally, right? So, and it's backed by gold, so it's even better, right? You're sending money digitally, and it's backed by gold. So supposedly this is a good thing, right? But I mean, that's nothing special. Anybody can do that, right? Anybody can create an app to back it by any asset you want, and you could have it to where anybody can send and receive with that. That's not hard to do, and it's been done. It was done a long time ago. It's been done many times. It was done by eGold. It was done by Liberty Reserve. And what people don't realize or they overlook is these are centralized. It's a central entity. And if you know anything about the government, which Peter Schiff absolutely does, they hate competition. And the one thing they really hate competition in is currency, money. That is like their main thing. So if you're going to compete against them and create a better currency than the fiat currencies we have, they're going to stop it. They're going to find a way to get rid of you. And so if you're a centralized entity like eGold, like Liberty Reserve, or like Gold Money, if you become large enough and you start to disrupt their game that they have going, they'll crush you. They'll get rid of you. And because you're a centralized entity, that's something they can do. And this is the complete miss that people get with Bitcoin. And this is what Peter Schiff is missing. And it's like the main part of Bitcoin. So the value of Bitcoin's not being gold money and sending some digital currency like PayPal or whatever. Nobody cares about that. The true value of Bitcoin is the decentralized open source nature of it. It's the cryptographic way that it works, where you're decentralized and you can't be stopped. You can't easily be stopped, right? So if somebody were to come along and, you have Bitcoin, right? And say the government somehow subverts it, or they find a way to take over the mining, or they do whatever they want to do, some way to stop it, which in general is already kind of hard to do. But let's say it happened. There's 1,500 other cryptocurrencies. The code is open source. People know how this type of thing works now. You have lots of other options. Are they going to stop 1,500 cryptocurrencies? Because if they do, now you're going to have 150,000 cryptocurrencies that pop up. You can't stop it. The cat's out of the bag. The technology, the understanding of how this works is out now. And the decentralized nature of this type of system, which makes it anti-fragile, is completely, like, virtually impossible to stop. And that is the true value of it. It's not the utility of sending currency. It's like, yeah, that's cool. But the part that makes it work is it can't be stopped by a government, or it can't easily be stopped. And if they shut one down, 10 more are going to pop up. And that's the part people are missing. That's why eGold and these other companies have never succeeded, because they can't succeed. As soon as they get big, they're brought down. As soon as another like a gold money were to get big, all of a sudden now, oh no, they're laundering drug money. They're doing some illegal activity. We can't have that. We got to get rid of them, right? And we've heard the same crap with Bitcoin. Bitcoin's used for drugs. It's used for all these illegal activities and blah, blah, blah. But they can't stop it. They can say that even though it's not used for that stuff. And they can say what they want, but they can't stop it. They can't do what they used to do to stop things. And that's the value of Bitcoin. It's decentralized. It's open source. It's a value exchange that can't be easily stopped. And if it is stopped, another one pops up. So that is the true value of it. And by him talking about gold money and this gold-backed currency thing, it's totally cool or whatever, but within the constraints of our current legal system, right, within these countries that we have that have their fiat currencies, that stuff just can't work. It's never going to win. But cryptocurrency can win, and that's why people like myself and others are so into it, because we kind of get that and we understand the shortcomings of centralized systems. So that's an important piece to talk about. Now, another thing, which he's caught wind of, it seems, is he's talking about the transaction fees now, right? Because, of course, Bitcoin transaction fees have skyrocketed. They're quite expensive. Back, at the peak when the mania was going on like a month or two ago, prices were like, $30, $40, $50 to do a transaction. And the main reason why it was high anyway, because so many people are buying, and these exchanges had to move money around a lot, and they had to do it in order to fulfill orders. And by doing that, the price had to go up to get these transactions out so they could fulfill orders. So a lot of that transaction fee thing was based on, this mania of people wanting to get crypto, and the exchanges having to make sure they could confirm these transactions and move money through wallets and stuff, and that raised the prices. Now the price has gone down a little bit. It's about $5 or so a transaction. Still obviously really, really high, and, not something that would work as well for like a transaction type thing. But of course, there's 1,500 other cryptocurrencies, and you don't have to use just Bitcoin, right? So you don't want to pay $5? Well, use Litecoin, use Ethereum, use some other cryptocurrency that has fees in like 10-cent range, right? So it's like you're not stuck just to Bitcoin. And if it turns out Bitcoin, it makes sense for it to be more of a store of value, it's like, well, what's wrong with that? That's like the whole Peter Schiff thing on gold. Gold is a store of value. If Bitcoin's main purpose isn't as much to transact, but to just store value, well, then there you go. But it goes more than just this, right? So we had this whole Bitcoin Cash debacle happening in August 2017, where Bitcoin forked into two separate blockchains. And one of the main reasons for this Bitcoin Cash split was the fees, was the way that Bitcoin was handling the fee issue. They were like, Bitcoin Cash, those guys were just like, look, it's very easy to just change a variable in the code to make it to where we could do like 10 times as many transactions without having to freaking do anything else, and it'll fix this stupid problem, right? So that was kind of this big debate whether or not that should be done. Bitcoin Cash is like, screw you guys, we're going to do it. So they did it. We had this happen in August 2017, and now if you want to send Bitcoin Cash, you can do it for 2 cents, right? So you can, it's like, okay, Bitcoin has transaction problems, but it could easily be fixed if they wanted to for the same way Bitcoin Cash did it, and it would be 2 cents or so to do a transaction. But they have a different way they want to do it. Bitcoin has reasons for not wanting to do what Bitcoin Cash did, as far as like more centralization and stuff like that. There's lots of different arguments on that. But this fee thing has been talked about and addressed for a long time. It's basically like a scaling issue. And these scaling issues, this kind of stuff happens. There's also this Lightning Network that is on the way that could possibly solve this, and it would solve the transaction fee issue for a long time. But there's just lots of ways to get around the fee thing, and this is typical growing pains of new technology, right? It's no different than when the internet was coming out. People are like, okay, cool, we can do email with the internet, but we can't send attachments because that's way too big. The file sizes are too big, the bandwidth, blah, 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 blah. But yet we found a way, right? And then it's like, oh, well, we're never going to do online shopping. That's just not feasible on the internet. Until it was. And then you could never have video on the internet. That's just crazy. The file size, the bandwidth. No way you're going to have video. Oh, yeah, video. Look. Okay, so these are technological scaling issues, and it's just, you just have to work through it and find ways to scale. There's lots of solutions for this type of stuff. You even have something like IOTA, these non-blockchain cryptocurrencies that could do the actual transaction fees for essentially free for the cost of the energy to run a device. So it's like there are lots of ways to get around this or solutions, and there's lots of cryptocurrencies besides Bitcoin to use. It's like this is what a free market is all about, letting other entities compete, innovate, try to find ways to do something better and solve problems. So Bitcoin transaction fees, it's like, okay, yeah, it's a problem, but not really, because right now people just use Litecoin and Ethereum to send to do transactions, and they store everything in Bitcoin. It's like big deal. Okay, so you have that. Now, another argument you hear is that nobody's using it. It's like, okay, people are using it. You might not be using it, but that doesn't mean other people aren't using it. And like I said earlier, it's so like with gold. Peter Schiff's a big fan of gold. It's like, okay, if people aren't transacting in Bitcoin and it's not valuable because of that, right? Well, people surely aren't transacting in gold, but somehow that's valuable. So transacting in it, I mean, that's just one like utility of it, right? But that's not like the reason for it to be valuable, because people don't transact in gold. They just sit on it. And that's perfectly fine. That's a good utility for it. But people also just sit on Bitcoin, and that's perfectly fine. It's a good utility for it. So you don't need to only transact in it for it to be valuable, right? You can use it for whatever the heck you want to use it for. And if people choose to use Bitcoin to just sit on, then let them. Like, that's no different than what people use gold for. So if gold's valuable, then Bitcoin's valuable in that way, which brings me to another point. Peter Schiff will say, Bitcoin has no intrinsic value. Well, anybody who's libertarian leaning or, into just like mainstream economics knows that value is subjective. So there isn't a objective metric for what's valuable. What's valuable to one person is not valuable to another person. Value is subjective. And calling something intrinsic value doesn't change that. It's still subjective. Whether something is intrinsically valuable or not depends on the person and whether that is intrinsically valued to them or not, right? So we hear gold is intrinsically valuable, right? So why is gold intrinsically valuable, right? Why is there intrinsic value in gold? Well, people will say gold has intrinsic value because it can't be easily created, right? You have to mine it. Okay, well, that's Bitcoin. Bitcoin you have to mine. It can't be easily created, right? Okay, well, no, they'll say. Gold has intrinsic value because it has utility outside of just money, right? Or silver especially. Silver, is used in electronics and things like this. Well, it's like, okay, Bitcoin has utility way outside of just currency also. It's just we haven't even gotten there yet, but it has so much utility outside of simply currency. So to say that intrinsic value is something, to say that like only gold has it or certain things, but Bitcoin doesn't, it's like for every reason that gold has intrinsic value, Bitcoin has the same reasons. It has that same value. So you can't use that either. It's like this doesn't really make sense or doesn't add up, right? So those are some of the main points that I wanted to address with Peter Schiff and cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, that kind of stuff. Now, of course, he's a great guy. I love listening to him. I'm always listening to what he has to say. Very sharp guy, great information, and he has helped me a lot, grow and learn about this kind of stuff. But I think what it is with Peter Schiff is, some people, it takes time for them to adopt things for whatever reason, right? They might have kind of certain like foundational beliefs, and it might be hard to shake that foundation, right? So it's like a guy who's into the horse and buggy, and now the automobile comes along and he's like, oh, screw this. He's like, this thing's never going to take over the horse and buggy, or, into the newspaper, into this conventional media stuff. The internet comes along. It's like, well, the internet's cool and all, but like, how are you going to do, like, you can't take over the newspapers. I mean, it's not going to take over phones. It's like, that doesn't make sense. So you have these new technologies that come along, and it's kind of hard for people to adopt them a lot of the time. And I totally get it, because most ideas, most things that come at you, especially like as a businessman, most of these things are bad. And like 99% or more of these things do fail. So you have to really be careful and accurate in your discernment to know which one's a winner and which one isn't. And most of them aren't winners, which is why it becomes easy to be skeptical of new things that come along. So I totally get where Peter Schiff's coming from, right? And then he has this kind of this gold foundation, this precious metal foundation of hard money as kind of like his ideological kind of baseline and foundation of what money should be and how that works. And then so when this other thing, crypto, comes along that isn't hard money, it really shakes that foundation and it doesn't sit well with him. And I totally get that. So now people like him have to work out, well, okay, does this make sense? How do I change what I've believed for my whole life? It's no different than religion. Like, you have a certain religious belief, and then somebody kind of upsets or shows a contradiction or something that might be like a higher level interpretation of what you believe. And you're like, frick, I really got to figure out how I work through this now. Like, do I discard it and know that they're probably right? Or do I, like, what do you do? Do you try to adopt it and work it in somehow? You really have to understand it. And this is kind of, I think, what people like Peter Schiff are going through. You know, not a bad thing. I mean, it's way better than most people who just believe anything and you just throw anything at them and they just take it and say like, okay, yes, you're right. And it's like they hold contradictory views and they don't really have any basis for accuracy or understanding on anything. So that's not the good way to go. I mean, I respect what Peter Schiff does. I respect that. You know, he's just got to figure out how to kind of work through what the true value and understanding of this thing is so he can kind of sort that out internally. He's just behind the curve on this one. And it's, you know, it's hard to get it all right, especially the big ones. A lot of people miss the internet. A lot of people miss different things that come along, right? And, you know, people have missed kind of the cryptocurrency one. And the people who kind of saw it early kind of were able to assess it and, you know, be able to kind of see the true value of it. They did well because of that. They were able to kind of see, like, you know, against like kind of all odds. It's like, it's so easy to see how Bitcoin could have never worked and seeing what could have gone wrong with it. I mean, there's so many arguments against it, right? But to be able to see like, well, this decentralized nature of it, it's open source. The current money we use is really bad, so you don't have to even be that much better than what we currently have. Like, to be able to kind of put this together and see how it could work, it's like, that is kind of the true innovation and understanding. And that's why people have done so well who are early adopters, because they kind of saw that and they were ahead of the curve and they did well because of it. So that's, you know, I wanted to mention that, and that's something to think about and consider when looking into this. So, you know, nothing against Peter Schiff. Just wanted to share that with you, get some ideas out, and, you know, let you kind of fumble around with this stuff a little bit too. Because, you know, I'm really into this cryptocurrency stuff and talking about it. And I don't hear people mention kind of some of this stuff a lot of the time. So I wanted to get that out there and let people hear it and give my take. So appreciate it. Thank you very much for listening. And please share this video with your friends. If you enjoy it, like it, comment below. And I will be back again with you guys real soon. So see you later. Bye-bye.